Panthers lose to the Lightning in game number 82 while resting some key guys, but it didn't matter because now it is official. The Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning will take on each other in the first round.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, April 16th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. So you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Mondoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers and on Blue Sky at LO_FLA Panthers. You can follow the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Subscribe, and if you are on the YouTube channel, make sure to press that like button down below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You could do that all on FanDuel. So, Florida Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. Today, we are going to break down in the first segment the Panthers' 5-1 loss against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We are also going to grade the regular season in segment number 2 on how the Panthers did coming off a Stanley Cup run, and then set you up for a Battle of Florida. Talk about the appetizer for the Battle of Florida here. And here to discuss all of that with me on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It's Wednesday, which means it's a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. Jacob, welcome back to the show, my friend. Oh, let me unmute you. There we go.
Yeah, exciting time. It's our last show pre-playoffs, so we finally made it. We're about to start the real season, so that's exciting. Can't say I'm thrilled about another Battle of Florida for all the right reasons, I guess. It's going to be incredible hockey. It's going to be fast-paced. It's going to be intense. It's going to be nerve-wracking. It's going to be aggressive. It's going to be everything we've come to know in this series. But a rivalry series, it means a lot more and has us a lot more nervous and a lot more on the edge of our seats. So I'm sure everyone else, hockey fans outside of Florida, are going to enjoy it 10 times more than we will, unless we win, of course. And then it's the best time ever. So gearing up for another one of these. It's this one should be a classic.
Yeah, and we'll definitely discuss more of that in segment number 3 and just how exciting it is for the sport overall. For hockey, but the Panthers came into this one against the Tampa Bay Lightning with no Alexander Barkov, Sam Reinhart, Gustav Forsling, Anton Lundell, Tomas Nosek, AJ Greer. But thankfully for them, after taking a puck to the forearm on Monday against New York, Nico Sturm was back in the lineup, so he was okay. And just like for the Panthers, they look like a team that was resting some guys. Tampa Bay looked like a team that was playing for something. And after scoring after Braden Point scored the first goal off the rush for the Panthers, the physicality started to really pick up. Multiple checks from Uvis Balinskis on Brandon Hagel. The Tampa Bay Lightning were starting to take exception to those, and we saw it boil up mostly at the end of the game. And then after the bad pinch by Nico Mikkola that caused the 2-on-1 for the Tampa Bay Lightning here, it was over from there. And then the Panthers going into the second period with a 4-minute power play carried over. No life for them. But the good news about this, Jacob, is that we saw a few things of Brad Marchand going on the same line as Sam Bennett just to see a few more shifts before, even though they might not start together in the postseason, we still get a little bit of that just to get a little bit of tape possibly of what they could do. And it manifested in a goal for them in game number 1100 for Brad Marchand off a quick rush and then using Sam Bennett as a decoy and then beating Vasilevsky on the short side. So that's the good news for the Panthers there.
Yeah, getting Marchand going right before the playoffs is huge. He's had his own playoff run-ins with Tampa. He's not a well-liked player there. It's funny that it was Ryan Callahan on the call tonight, and we all know about his incident with Marchand, the licking there in Tampa Bay. So Marchand should be really impactful in the playoffs. This is what you got him for. So introducing himself to Tampa now as a member of the Panthers, it should be fun. I think he's a big reason why the Panthers might have the forward depth advantage, especially now not knowing the status of Mitchell Chaffee after he gets hurt tonight with what looks like a head injury.
Bjorkstrand as well.
Bjorkstrand is out. What sounds like long-term. Reports came out today that Tampa is concerned about how much time he's going to miss. He's listed as week to week. Week doesn't sound very promising for him playing in the first round. So Marchand may prove to be a really, really key addition to the Panthers lineup if you're trying to have a little bit more forward depth compared to what Tampa has on the other side. So it's good to get him going tonight. I'm glad they didn't rest him for this one. You want to get him another game to get his legs under him and have a little bit more offensive confidence, which I think he got tonight with Sam Bennett. And again, that's another line combination they can use too. I think ultimately Marchand starts with Lundell and Etu, but he could go to that second line if Mackey struggles to adapt to the playoff intensity or the physicality and he can't really produce. You have the flexibility to put Marchand anywhere in the top 9.
Yeah, and then think about also this most recent stretch for the Panthers. For them is just an ability to, even though Evan Rodriguez is a winger, they're getting him a few reps at center. I mean, we saw it in the playoffs last year when Sam Bennett took that shot to the hand, and then he couldn't even take faceoff. So that was a little bit of a positive of just getting him those reps back at center for him. And even in this game specifically, I thought that they were pretty structured on their PK. They went 4 or 5 on the kill. 16 of 18 in the season series between them and Tampa Bay. So I'm not, obviously this is not a game that you're looking based on the results. Crazy. It's a second game of this season series where Tampa Bay goes up and you almost forget what the actual final score is. I mean, going back to that back-to-back with Johansson versus Bobrovsky after that knee-on-knee collision with Matthew Tkachuk there. That's the game I'm talking about. But also, these teams also were Steve Gold. I did not watch the ESPN broadcast. I watched the Script Sports broadcast, and Steve Goldstein mentioned that there was almost 10 minutes of no stoppages for this one between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was just two teams that just wanted to get out of there unscathed for them. But the biggest story for the Panthers here, for what it's worth, because I did put a podcast episode on what Jesse Puljujarvi's chances are of being part of the postseason roster. So in the middle of the third period, like you mentioned Mitchell Chaffee on what his status could be. He's coming up the ice, lifts his head a little bit, and then as Jesse Puljujarvi is skating through him, an illegal check to the head, gave him a 5-minute major. There was also fights between Nico Sturm and Gergensons as well, which really amped up the rivalry. There's also the scrum after the game. Mackie Samoskevich was also involved there. But now the chances of Puljujarvi even playing game 1, if he was even being considered, are he might have also played his way out of the postseason lineup, because if you have a winning lineup, like they say, and especially if the Panthers start off on a good tone and get a win, you're not changing that lineup.
Right. After that hit, I'd be shocked if he doesn't end up suspended anyway.
Yeah.
The 5-minute major automatically comes with a hearing unless the NHL decides to reduce it. I don't see them reducing that.
No.
And it's not a hit that I have a huge problem with necessarily. I don't think there was a lot of ill intent. If he wanted to injure him, he would have come with a lot more speed. He would have intentionally lifted the elbow or raised the shoulder into the head. I think it was a bang play. He's skating by him. It's absolutely looking to make contact. It's not an innocent play. It's just a little bit reckless. Definitely more reckless than it was dirty. So I'm okay with him getting the 5. I hope Chaffee's okay. You don't like to see head injuries, even with your biggest rival. You don't want to see concussions, and that looked to me like a concussion. That it had all the signs of a head injury there. So hopefully he's able to play when the series starts. There's a little bit of time off, but as far as Puljujarvi, yeah, I'd be shocked if he's not suspended. And then he's done enough in his few games where he's a guy that if you want to get deep into the options in the bottom 6 and you need some production or you need a spark, he's a guy you can trust to get in there and play a little. He's got some offense to his game, but he's a big body and he's a net front presence and he's a big hitter. His forward checking game is exactly what the Panthers look for. So maybe he doesn't contribute to the postseason roster this year. I think if he's playing, then it's probably something has gone wrong with some of the talent above him. But with that said, he's definitely got an opportunity to contribute to the Checkers playoff run if they choose to send him back down. And I think he's definitely played his way into another contract. I don't think this is a guy that the Panthers are going to give up on after a couple of games. I think he's opened the eyes of the people that need to see him and see that there's potential there. And I think he might stick in the Panthers system, and we'll see what kind of role he can carve out for himself next year when the Panthers inevitably have some guys leave who are on either 1-year deals or guys who are on expiring deals, and you got to fill depth again. So I've been pleased with his game. He definitely ends his regular season with a bang of physicality. Maybe just crossed the line a little bit too much tonight, but I don't think we've seen the last of him in a Panthers jersey. That is for sure.
I hope not. And that comes a day after Darnell Nurse drove Quentin Byfield down the ice. And actually, before we were recording, the Department of Player Safety did announce a 1-game suspension for a Nurse, which comes in game 82. That means nothing for the Oilers. So it's a slap on the wrist for Darnell Nurse going into the postseason. So the Checkers will be back in action tomorrow. So we might see the Rasmus Asplunds of the world sent down Matt Kiersteads, who got an assist actually on the Marchand goal. And also for the Panthers, we'll just see where it goes from there. But we're going to transition to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss and take a step back and look at this regular season that the Panthers finished with 98 points and 47 wins. We are going to just evaluate and see and grade how the Panthers fared through this regular season, coming off a Stanley Cup championship. We're going to break all that down on next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. And ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing my money with my partner is smoother than ever. You can start tracking shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONAHL at Monarch Money for 50% off your order. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONAHL for half off your first year. Segment 2 here on this Wednesday, April 16th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. And Jacob and also the listeners, because this was game 82, this really didn't mean anything. We're going to skip the whole 3 duds of the game and moment where we knew the game was lost for this one. But we did want to give game 82 its justice, at least in segment number 1. But looking back at just the regular season for the Panthers, with going 52-24-6 last season, and then the run to the Stanley Cup Final, realizing what they lost in OEL, Brandon Montour on the blue line for them, and just to name a few guys, Ryan Lomberg, big key contributors to the guys, and then 4th most points in franchise history with 98. 3rd most wins in a season with 47, just behind last year and the President's Trophy season where they won 58 that year. The hectic travel schedule for them, starting with the Global Series in November and then coming back, and then everything squeezed in with the 4 nations. Injuries early and late. Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov within the first 3 games, and then Matthew Tkachuk at the 4 nations, Barkov in and out of the lineup at times, especially. I like to pinpoint that Western Canadian trip with him and Sam Bennett switching on and off, and then emergence of Sam Bennett in a contract year for them, and even with Carter Hagee's decline. I mean, I had to say, Jacob, coming off a Stanley Cup championship and only winning 5 less games for the Panthers here, it's not satisfactory where I'm at, but I'm more on the content side. Where do you stand on on the Panthers and how they managed their regular season, where they finished 47, 31, and 4.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mixed bag. I probably land more on like a B or B minus. And that's about where I expected them to be. The main thing is I think overall we won't know really until the playoffs how well they've prepared themselves and managed themselves as far as rest is concerned. You can't really tell the effects of that until deep into a playoff run.
No doubt.
If they run out of gas, then we'll know. But I think they've given themselves the best chance not to burn out. I think they've done a good job prioritizing rest. I think the entire season they've played it extra cautious with injuries, much to the annoyance of fans at times, where we hear day to day or week to week, and it ends up dragging on and on and on. But it's just about doing right by the player and making sure that everyone's healthy for right now going into the playoffs. And the Panthers at the start of the playoffs will have a fully healthy roster minus Aaron Ekblad, who's out not because of injury but because of suspension. And hopefully you get through game 1 and 2 without any injury, and you can have your fully loaded, fully healthy lineup ready to go game 3, first game at home in the postseason. I think the Panthers have done a great job of positioning themselves to do that. With that said, I don't think they're competitive in a first round series against Tampa, if not for some key additions at the trade deadline. I don't think you have a chance winning against Tampa if you don't get Seth Jones. I don't think you really put your best foot forward if you don't add some of the forward depth that they added in Sturm and Marchand and bring in some key pieces to help the forward group. So I think the trade deadline was huge for making the Panthers a more formidable contender here to replace some of what they lost from last year. Overall, though, health was huge this season. Managing ice time was huge. Prioritizing rest was huge. Coming out of Four Nations, I think obviously there was concern of injury there. We unfortunately deal with kind of the worst as far as Matthew Tkachuk goes, his injury, but who knows if he comes back fully healthy for the playoffs, maybe that injury is a blessing in disguise because it opened up the door to bring in some talent at the deadline. So we will see. There's a lot about this regular season that was all designed for the playoffs in mind. So we won't really know how this season pays off until we get there. But as far as positioning themselves, not to drop too far and to still be competitive come playoff time, they've done a good job of it. So I give them a B minus maybe, if not for a few losing skids and stretches of play where they were sort of dragging, going through the motions, which to be expected coming off of back-to-back runs to the Stanley Cup Final. You can't keep that energy and intensity 24/7. So B minus, and we'll see if that grade is elevated come playoff time, which it very well could.
Yeah, and I put this post on Twitter, and 78% say B, 10% say A, C, 12% say C, and then 0% say D or F. Actually, I had one vote on the Instagram say D or F out of 60 votes on Instagram, but then 49 people voted B on Instagram, 11 A, and then 6 of them C for this regular season. And then
someone out there wanted a President's Trophy or bust this year. Wow.
Yeah, no
D
doubt.
or F is crazy.
That is nuts in my opinion. But think about this also. Bobrovsky was off to not the best start, and then how he's rebounded as well, just winning 11 of his last 14 home starts, excuse me. Panthers overall winning 10 of their last 13 home games, and how they fared against the teams that they faced in the last 2 postseasons for them as well. And like you mentioned about the Matthew Tkachuk injury, there's still questions, but there's still guys plugged in like a Kevin Weeks who say he'll be ready for game 1 of the postseason, which I'm going to guess, this isn't reporting, I'm going to guess that it starts on Sunday, and it's going to be a matinee because they're going to put the Maple Leafs at nighttime. So I'm going to guess that this is going to be a matinee matchup between these 2 teams. And God bless that LTIR pool money that the Panthers had, bringing in Vanacek, Seth Jones, Brad Marchand to the mix, using all the way up to that LTIR money for them. And still, the Panthers finished top 2 in shots for, top 5 in shots against. a great road power play for them, and basically staying afloat. And guys bought into the system. Newcomers are wanting to be a part of this. AJ Greer from night one getting into that fight against the Boston Bruins. Nate Schmidt, he's been up and down the lineup for the Panthers here as well at times. He's not necessarily the skill level of OEL, but still, that's another guy who that you could put him in the lineup every single night, and you could at least trust him to not make the huge mistake for the Panthers here. And also, only one player, by the way, only one player played all 82 games. That was Evan Rodriguez for the Panthers. Fun fact there.
Very reliable.
Yeah, very reliable. So that's another thing about just guys coming in and then veterans just being ready whenever their number is called. And more importantly, development of a young Mackie Samoskevich, whose game, it might be his first full season, but a game that is built for the postseason. He's going to get that opportunity on the second line with Sam Bennett and hopefully Matthew Tkachuk.
Oh, yeah. I think if we're talking about the success of this regular season, Mackie Samoskevich is one of the top stories as far as what the Panthers were able to accomplish. You look at what they lost. You didn't really see a path for Mackie to not be thrown into a situation where he was going to have to play a role. There was really no choice. It was, if Mackie can't fill this spot, then you just have a gaping hole in the lineup. There wasn't another option to fit under the cap until the trade deadline to really get production in those spots. So Mackie stepped into a role where he needed to perform, and he worked his way from the fourth line all the way to the top six in the top power play, and looked good in every single role he played. I think that coming into this season, I was thinking Mackie's going to be a full-time NHLer. Maybe his ceiling is second line winger, 50-point type of guy. I'm fully convinced that he is a future point per game player in the NHL. I have no doubt about that. He exceeded expectations this year. If you want to look towards next season, I think he's a guy who could have a 25 and 25 type of year next year. And from there, he could become a perennial 30-goal scorer if he wants to. He's got a lot more offensive ability than I think we gave him credit for. His shot is lethal. I'm excited for the future of Mackie. And then just a couple other really minor things that you don't really think too much about as far as regular season successes, but getting Jesper Boquist locked up for a couple more years is huge. That's a big one. That happens in the regular season. Who knows what kind of playoffs he could have and could drive his price tag up if we hadn't locked him up. And then having the assurance that he'll be in the lineup next year, that's a big hole that could have been opened up that's already filled. And then another thing that Bill Zito gets done in the regular season towards the end, and it just speaks to the quality of the organization, is top college players who have the ability to sign wherever they want to, whether they're draft picks or not, tend to want to burn that first year of their ELC. They tend to want to jump right into the NHL right away. And they managed to get Jack Devine locked up for 3 years starting next season. So they don't have to find a way to squeeze him into the very, very limited cap space that they could try to find this season. So that was another big thing. You keep all 3 years of Jack Devine's ELC. You push that to next year, and you're going to get him some seasoning in Charlotte. Really, I mean, it's not just the players and the coaches that performed well in the regular season. I think Bill Zito's regular season work gets an A+. I think he had a tremendous deadline, did a tremendous job locking up Boquist for a couple of years, and then gets our top college prospect under contract with a full 3 years kicking in next year. I think Bill Zito did a fantastic job during his regular season as well.
Yeah, glad you mentioned all of that. And Mackie Samoskevich finished the season with 15 goals, 16 assists in 72 games. And to think that he had that injury and then he came back and then had an upper body injury after colliding in the boards against the St. Louis Blues, and then having to be part of a paper transaction because Sergei Bobrovsky was having his second child, and then they had to call up a goaltender. It wasn't for performance reasons. It was because he was the only waivers exempt player as far as the skater at the time that had to be in order to fit the cap gymnastics for the Panthers right before.
And the physicality too. The kid is not afraid. He gets right into those scrums and throws his body around. And he's the smallest guy on the ice sometimes. But man, he's a got some bite to him. The Sam Bennett influence is there for sure.
No doubt. I can't wait to see how he performs in the postseason. But now that it's an opportunity for us to transition to segment number 3, where we are going to give you guys a little bit of an appetizer for the Battle of Florida, which is officially set. The Florida Panthers will take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 1 starting this weekend. And we are going to discuss more of that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And the NBA and NHL playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, you can join FanDuel by placing a $5 bet and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Segment 3 here on this Wednesday, April 16th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Here with Jacob Winans on another edition of Winans Wednesday. Congratulations to Alexander Barkov being the Panthers nominee for the King Clancy Memorial Trophy for being an example of leadership on and off the ice. But the NHLPA also put out a players poll, and he was second in most complete player behind Sidney Crosby, 5th in a player that you would choose to win a faceoff, and also 4th as far as smartest, highest hockey IQ. So once again, congratulations to Barkov for being the Panthers nominee. So, Jacob, it's and I see that you have your cat there, by the way.
Yeah, she's joining me for the last segment.
So Jacob, although the Tampa Bay Lightning needed to win and for the Toronto Maple Leafs to lose, the Leafs ended up winning 4-0 against the Buffalo Sabres. Got 2 empty net goals at the end. The first goal was scored by our former friend for playing for the Florida Panthers, Steven Lawrence, getting that first goal of the game for the Leafs there, and then punching the ticket for the Toronto Maple Leafs, clinching the division. And now there's not only a Battle of Florida, but a Battle of Ontario. And Paul Maurice, after the game, he spoke on the Battle of Florida. It's great for hockey, 2 elite teams who can win the whole thing. And when you look at the playoff bracket, I know there's one spot left with the Columbus Blue Jackets winning in regulation today in Philadelphia. And Montreal plays tomorrow against Carolina, who's going to rest some guys. By the way, Skylar Brindamore is going to make his NHL debut for the Canes, playing under his dad. So that's another thing. Who says the postseason can't be fun without the Boston Bruins, Pittsburgh Penguins, and the New York Rangers? So seeing what's not only on the east side, but the west side with Dallas, Colorado, but Battle of Florida. I think of just I just think of like now how much it's grown with this sport and just how the division format, people complain about it, but I know we're going to be stressed, like you mentioned in segment number 1. But I just think about putting this state on full display when it comes to the hockey culture and what it's built as far as like a rivalry and just absolute hate between the two fan bases and just the conversation around here and just the example that these two teams set and also what's built around these teams. Quality goaltending, incredible high-end scoring, some depth, which I'll break down a little bit later this week for the Panthers and Lightning here. It's going to be made for an incredible collision course between these two teams.
Yeah, and if both teams are fully healthy, I think honestly it's a Stanley Cup Final caliber first round, which is and you know, as a fan of one of the two teams, you don't love to have to play that tough of a series just to start your playoffs.
No doubt.
But the NHL is getting what they want out of this, which is recurring rivalry matchups, something that you can build over the course of several years and look forward to every year in the playoffs. This will now be 4 out of the past 5 years the Panthers and Lightning have met. And as of right now, every single time they've met, the winner of that series has gone to a Stanley Cup Final. So it's a good indicator. If you watch the Battle of Florida series, that's a good indicator of who's going to win the East, and it has been. The really cool thing, and we gave Tampa their flowers last year when the Panthers beat them. We had said for years, when the Panthers are going to win their Stanley Cup, they're going to have to get through Tampa. You're going to have to slay that dragon if you're going to win a cup. They did, and we gave Tampa their flowers as this was the standard. This is what the Panthers had to overcome, and it helped them reach the top of the mountain. Now it's a different field because it's two teams that have reached the top of the mountain. It's two teams that have won Stanley Cups, and it's two teams that are hungry to win another one. It's not a situation where it's necessarily big brother, little brother anymore. It's two established champions, and it's a heavyweight match, and that's really all you can ask for as a fan and from the entertainment value. With that said, there's definitely some really cool series. The Battle of Ontario should be insanely fast paced and exciting.
I can't wait.
That one's going to be good. And then the Rantanen Bowl out west, Colorado matching up with Dallas. That's no one could have expected that would happen. So there's and then Edmonton and LA meeting again.
Fourth straight year. And can LA get over the hump in that one? We'll see. But I don't think there's a better series than Panthers Lightning this season. That it's going to be electric. It's definitely not the Tampa from last year. That was a big down year as far as depth and defense. They've rebounded. Brian McDonough's back, led the NHL in plus minus. They got JJ Moser, who's a really, really solid defensive defenseman. They've improved their depth in the forward group. Yanni Gord's back. They brought in some familiar faces that helped them win, and the Panthers are going to have to contend with that. But this is definitely a really deep Panthers group too, so I'm excited. This fully healthy, two teams that have won cups. The Eastern Conference has run through Florida since 2020. It's been Lightning or Panthers every year. It's gonna be some special hockey. This should be a lot of fun. And because of the fact that both of these teams have won and have represented the Eastern Conference in the last 5, I mean, a lot of national pundits are also going to see the loser of this series. Like they'll probably have more confidence in their ability to bounce back than probably the fans will. Probably a lot of the narratives of fans will be like, where are they going to go from here? But then you think about the track record and then how signing long-term guys and identifying core pieces as well. It's not only just this year that it's going to be building up as like this rivalry, but it's going to be multiple years to come. And the fact that they've both been on that winning side is truly, truly helpful on just continuing of just building it down here.
I want to add on to that because I think that's a fantastic point. Whichever team loses in the first round, it's not a typical first round exit. It's just not. And just look at the track record of these teams. If you look at their first playoff matchup, the Panthers lose that in the first round, but no one even came close to giving Tampa that kind of fight the rest of the playoffs, including the final.
Yeah.
And then you look at the next time they meet, the Panthers win a President's Trophy following that first round exit. Then they meet in the playoffs and get swept. And it's like, oh my God, this was the best team you're ever going to have. How do they come back from that? They go to the Stanley Cup Final the very next year. And then Panthers beat Tampa last year in the postseason. And now Tampa has a roster this year that's fully loaded and could very well contend or win a Stanley Cup again. So it's definitely not a situation where if you lose in that first round, it's like, oh my God, our dynasty's over. You ran into another Goliath, and you guys are likely to meet each other again next year or the year after. It's two teams that are right in the middle of their cup window. So that's not just for us. Whichever team loses this first round, it's not the sky is falling, the end of the world. It was just best on best in a first round, and sometimes you run into a buzzsaw, and someone's got to lose. So I wouldn't panic for either team that loses in this first round. But I will say Tampa having the 2-1 series lead over us, that definitely means something in that little brother conversation. And I think the Panthers are going to be a little extra motivated to make that a 2-2 split as far as the the postseason matchups are concerned. So something to keep an eye on there.
Yes, and that'll definitely drive the conversation more for what this state has to offer for that. And also, remember in 2021, what happened to the Panthers in the last 2 regular season games? They won both of them. That was the whole Pat Maroon, Brandon Montour situation.
Oh, yeah.
Both of them. And Panthers, the way I see it is lose the battle, but get ready for a frickin' war. Because if you saw any of the scrums after in this one, that's not the worst that we're going to see, especially in the beginning of the series when game 1 happens. Matthew Tkachuk still hasn't met Nikita Kucherov since that happened back in December as well. So how if he ends up actually in the lineup for the Panthers here. So that's another storyline for the Panthers. So I'm excited, man. I'm really excited, and I can't wait for it to drop the puck. And thankfully for the Panthers here, they're going to get the most rest that they've had in over a month from now until game 1 of the postseason. So it's here. It's here, Jacob. It's here. Our favorite time of the year. So, Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Another successful Winans Wednesday. So tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8. And you're right. It's time to go. It's playoff time. This is what we wait all year for. Another chapter in this great rivalry. So any fans that are planning to go to the games in Tampa to start the series, be loud and make yourselves heard. And then game 3, a fully healthy roster back in our barn. This should be electric. I can't wait.
Can't wait neither. Thank you so much, my friend, and see you next week.
Looking forward to it.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.